Meet Isabel. We're both going to be your narrators today. She starts by telling us that she was sex trafficked, so brace yourself, folks, this is a rough one. She also tells us that she escaped, but there are millions of women around the world being sex trafficked. Flashback to some time ago, Isabel wakes up tied to a bed while her captor injects her with the substance. We flash back even further and Isabel is on a jog. She gets home and wishes her boyfriend Mark a happy anniversary. The two seem very much in love and joke about who will be making breakfast. Her daughter pops in and says she's hungry. Isabel says bet and walks out to see breakfast already prepared by Mark. After she eats, she heads to work. She's a fitness instructor. She talks to her client Maria about upcoming sessions and Maria says she can't afford any more sessions. Isabel adds in 5 classes anyway free of charge. She's at a coffee shop after work when a man walks in asking for change. He gets to this guy and the man gives him some cash. He then gets to Isabel. She checks but she doesn't have any. The man doesn't like that very much and starts berating and saying mean things to her. The man who gave the beggar change earlier, by the way his name is Peter, turns and defends Isabel, telling the beggar he's bugging and he needs to chill. The beggar calls them both clowns and takes Isabel's sandwich and dips. They laugh it off and Peter engages in conversation with Isabel. He tells her he works for a modeling agency and would love it if she modeled for him. She says nah, she's good. He then gives her his card and says if she ever changes her mind, to please give him a call. She talks to her boyfriend Mark about the modeling gig and he says she should do it, why not? He then tells her to go with a friend just to be safe. She decides to go without a friend. When she gets to the building, she starts having second thoughts because, well, look at the building. It looks pretty sus. Peter says, nah, you're just being paranoid. You'll be perfectly safe. Come right in. She goes right in. He starts telling her about all the zeros she'll be making and how she's modeling for a cruise company. They head up the elevator and meet this lady, Chloe, Peter's assistant. They finish up the photo shoot and all seems to go really well. After they finish, Peter thanks her for coming. And okay, cool, she leaves. She's at work when she gets a text from Chloe telling her about the modeling gig. She got it. Back home, she excitedly tells Mark the news and says she's going to be going back for more pictures. She'll be calling her mom to babysit. The next morning, she says bye to her daughter and heads out. Before going to the studio, she buys a new dress she wants to model and is excited. She gets to the building and notices it's looking mighty empty. She heads inside and meets Peter. She asks Peter why the building is so empty and he ignores her. He locks the studio door, takes a photo of her, and sits down. Isabel asks what's going on, and he pulls out a knife. She says her boyfriend's coming to meet her soon, so he should really just chill with all that. He says cool, he'd love to meet him. He then asks if she's ever been stabbed and goes on to describe the feeling. He tells her that she can get nerve damage and they might even need to amputate one of her body parts if she receives a stab wound. She begins crying and he tells her to chill, it's all good. Oh, but if she screams, he's gonna have to hurt her. She takes out her phone and quietly tries to make a call. He hears it vibrate and doesn't like that very much. She says she needs to use the bathroom and he says go for it, but she must leave her phone behind. She does and heads to the bathroom. She goes through her bag and checks for something to help her escape. Peter suddenly walks in and tells her to change into a new outfit. She says nah, I'm good. So boom, he hits her. He tells her he's going to give her some painkillers and something to cover up the bruising so she shouldn't worry. Isabel, now changing into her new outfit, heads back into the main room. Peter says she looks great, but now she must take off her clothes so he can take pictures of her. He says if she doesn't, he will hurt her. He gives her a glass of milk to drink, knife in hand, then he takes pictures of her. She begins to react to the drink and gets dizzy, then passes out. She wakes up to a man violating her as Peter records. After the man finishes, he pays Peter, then leaves. A shocked Isabel sits up, distraught. Peter tells her to clean herself up in the bathroom and that this was her new home, so she better get used to it. She begins looking around her surroundings, trying to find a means of escape, but the room seems escape-proof. Peter tells her there's no means of escape and that no one will hear her scream. He then says the man who violated her will be returning in a few days. She says she will not be cleaning herself up because she wants the police to find her just the way she is when they come. Peter tells her they will never find her, and furthermore, she doesn't even know where she is herself. Isabel then takes a shower and heads back to her room to find Peter sitting with some food for her. She begs him to let her go home to her daughter, and he reassures her that he will call her babysitter to let her know that Isabel will be okay. He tells her to stay quiet as he makes the call, but as soon as he calls, she begins screaming for help. He doesn't like that very much and hits her. He then tells her he didn't make the call yet, then proceeds to actually make the call, telling her babysitter that Isabel will be working late. He hit her throat so she can't speak and call for help. She asks him why he's doing this to her, and he says easy, it's because of money. She says she will pay him whatever he wants, and he says nah, I'm good. For the next few hours, multiple men come in with strange desires. She tells Peter that she's pregnant, and also since her boyfriend dropped her off, he'll be looking for her. He says if her boyfriend had come to pick her up, he would have let her go. She cries as he leaves. Another client comes in and is a real weirdo. He then has his way with her. Peter comes in with the pregnancy test kit and tells her to take the test. She does, and Peter confirms that she is in fact pregnant. He tells her not to worry and that he'll take good care of her and give her everything that she needs. A frustrated Isabel begins throwing things around in her room. While doing so, she finds a metal object in the lining of a suit. In the next scene, Isabel pretends to be asleep as Peter comes in to check up on her. As he gets close, she stabs him and runs outside to the roof of a building. She begins screaming for help, but nobody hears her. Peter goes after her as she runs down the stairs, knocking on the doors for help. She finds her way into an apartment and sees a little girl. She locks the door and tries calling for help outside the window, but again, no one can hear her. Peter tries forcing open the door when the little girl, who turns out to be an entire op, opens the door. The op is Peter's daughter. Peter comes in and boy, he ain't happy. He begins suffocating Isabel as she tries to fight him off. He wins the fight though and knocks her unconscious. She wakes up in a soundproof wardrobe with tape around her mouth. Peter then gets a visitor. It's Mark, and he's looking for Isabel. He tells him that his girlfriend had a photo shoot with a guy named Peter and he's looking for her. He tells her that he's sorry he lost his girlfriend, but his name is Patrick, and he knows nothing about photos. Mark is about to leave, but he hears a loud noise coming from his apartment, so he forces his way in. He discovers that the loud noise is just from Peter's daughter and leaves. Peter tells Isabel that he's the building manager and knows every inch of the place, so she should just do what she's told. She nods. He takes the duct tape from her mouth and pulls her out of the wardrobe. He then serves her breakfast and tells her about his daughter. Isabel's afraid to eat the food and he reassures her that it's not poison. He tells her his real name is in fact Patrick, but for the sake of the video, we'll still be calling him Peter. Anyway, Peter says the people that he works for know everything about her, so when he releases her, she should just live her life and not tell anyone. But until then, she should just comply. A new client comes in and takes advantage of Isabel, hurting her in the process. She has hallucinations of her daughter and is happy until she's thrust back into her reality. She then goes to the bathroom and tries to execute herself, but Peter comes in just in time. He saves her and tells her to think about her daughter and her unborn child. Isabel breaks down and tells him she cannot go home after what she's been through, and he tells her to be strong. He brings her a cat that his daughter found and says that she can have it. She then asks him who Chloe was, and he says it was just someone he hired off the internet. She then asks why he didn't take Chloe instead, and he says that Isabel was more sellable. The next day, Peter comes in to get her ready for a new client. She says that she's sick and needs to go see a doctor. He tells her that this will be her last client, and then he'll let her go home. She tells him she saw his photo collection of girls he'd taken in the past. He tells her that most of them went home because they were good. Isabel prepares for the client and Peter lets him in. She turns to the client with an interesting choice of makeup and begins speaking rudely as she gets closer to him. She then stabs him, but he hits her with a haymaker, knocking her out. The client calls for Peter with a very authoritative tone. Peter comes down like a puppy groveling to his master. The man tells Peter that he will be paying him double by next week or he'll be taking his daughter. Peter nods his head and tries waking Isabel up. He eventually gets her up and she says that she knows that he'll never be releasing her, so she doesn't really care and would rather be hurt than continue working for him. Peter doesn't like that very much and knocks her out. When she wakes up, she's handcuffed to a bed with a man standing over her, needle in hand. The man tries injecting her with a strange substance but receives a call telling him to wait. The man tells her that Peter will be the one administrating the injection and bids her farewell. Isabel then breaks her thumb to get out of the handcuffs. She grabs a needle but hears Peter coming, so she heads back in bed pretending to be handcuffed. Peter tells her she could have been just fine, but now she'll end up dead. He then tells her she was dumb for falling for his modeling trick in the first place. He starts looking for the injection but is unable to find it. When he has his back turned to her, she tries injecting him but he's able to stop her. Well, until she comes in with that hook, bang, and knocks him out. She runs out into the night and down a ladder. She's running down the street and finds a police car. She tells the officer her experience in tears, and the officer says, "Say less." A squad of officers force their way into Peter's place but are not able to find him. The movie ends on a good note with Isabel being reunited with her family, but damn do I wish they got Peter. I'm talking bang, bang, bang. Okay, that's the end of our show, folks. I do hope you enjoyed the recap. Leave a like if you did, and make sure to hit that subscribe button for more videos like this one. Take care.